Oh, what a way to send the guys, on the road with a game like this one tonight. Kyle Neubeck hanging out with us. Derek with you as well. Is Derek with us or just you tonight, Kyle? Derek is here too. We got the guys with us here tonight. And man,
we're here, baby.
This was a wild one, Kyle. And we just read your tweet with the pool report with Keith Pompey of the Inquirer.com with crew chief Curtis Blair. And that was just some wild stuff. So could you take us, both you and Derek, into the arena tonight, your vantage point of what you saw in the moment and how things changed thereafter?
Well, on the Andre Drummond thing, my vantage point was just describing things as they happen, and Nick Nurse just started laughing in the middle of his press conference at the absurdity of that situation. The Joel one, I was obviously more taken aback by, because that was as visceral and as angry a reaction as I can remember from him in the entirety of the time I've covered him. And obviously he had a much publicized moment of rage earlier this season away from the floor. What I tweeted earlier, which I thought was important to note, he didn't actually come storming down the sideline until after the second tech. And I thought this was a situation where I think both parties did not hold up their end of the bargain, right? Like, if I'm looking at it from the Sixers perspective, Joel has to be smarter, and Joel has to look at it as like, look, we just can't afford to lose games, right? And we can't afford you to take yourself out of a game. Now, on the other side of it, the official has to know you've already had a disastrous moment with Andre Drummond where they throw him out of the game. Then they rescind that and say, actually, there was a flopping tech on Victor Wembanyama. They shoot a technical free throw, make the free throw, and then they took the point off the board after they had the luxury of video replay to reassess all this. And so the whole crowd's mad. The Sixers are pissed off about what happened. You have to know emotions are on edge a little bit. And so when Joel goes up and is screaming in an official's face at midcourt, obviously give him a tech, say like, hey, this is where the line is, let him yell his heart out. He's walking back to the bench, you're walking the other way, and that should be the end of it, right? That's how you police the game and keep things moving. Instead, you get just the worst of all worlds. And then on top of all that, Gershon Yabusele hanging on the rim tech. Like, if there's anything I'm most mad about tonight, it's after all of that, after you completely screwed this game up from a game flow and game management perspective, you just cost Yabu $2,000 with that tech, and the Sixers a point in a close game. But more importantly, you're taking money out of Yabusele's pocket after he had a great game and an inspiring performance in the second half. Just an embarrassing display of incompetence from the officials tonight.
Kyle, that was well said. I saw your tweet that it was the worst officiated game you've ever covered. You've covered a lot of them.
I'm not even sure it was close either. Like, at least that Knicks game 2 or whatever, that was an isolated sequence of events. That was
one sequence,
right?
At the end, yeah.
This was, I mean, Derek and I are talking during the game. That one moving screen they called on Paul George, I said to him, I was like, if that's a moving screen, Kevin Garnett would have been thrown out of every game he ever played. Like, that's in the moving screen category, that's barely even on the radar. So just the little things that happened throughout that game, let alone the big flashbulb moments, were just a complete joke. So terrible handling. And then, so you mentioned the pool report. The thing I don't like about that pool report as well is that there's no actual explanation there, right? They said there was incidental contact and like there's no further punishment warranted from that. And he gets 2 unsportsmanlike texts for yelling. It's like, okay, well, that's not good enough. You got to tell me what he said and what was yelled that warrants you throwing him out of the game then. Because if it was not physical contact, which seemed to be what the people on Twitter and other platforms were trying to suggest, then you have to give me a damn good reason why somebody's getting thrown out just because they're mad about a foul call.
So those are your thoughts. Derek, What did Nick Nurse say? Did you guys get Joel after the game?
No,
Did you get Drummond?
Joel was gone before we got there. He was not made available. Nick Nurse pretty much just laughed at Kyle's explanation of the Drummond sequence, and that was for the most part what we got there. I will say, in terms of the pool report, I think it's good that they deem the contact incidental, because I think that very limits the chances he will be suspended after this. So I think that's good. To Kyle's point, the refs turning into robots when you get asked about a pool report is not great.
So bad.
We all know the rule that two technicals gets you ejected. Tell me why you gave them the technical, not what the rule is. That is very, very frustrating. But no, outside of that, we don't have too much more in terms of like Joel wasn't made available.
All right. Well, I'll let you go on the positive, Derek, and that is, wow, Tyrese Maxey. What a closing stretch in a season where he has been a little bit of a hot topic over the past couple of weeks for Sixers fans. That was just awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a great close. I thought earlier in the game, I thought he did a little better job of, using the threat of his drive to create shots. I thought the drive and kick game was maybe a little better than it has been at various points throughout the season. And obviously he come down and he makes 5 3-pointers, a lot of them in the guts of the game. I thought him being able to, generate steals and attack the rim without the 7'4" alien in the vicinity was huge. And obviously the big threes were incredible. It felt like a lot more like last year Tyrese Maxey than the one that we have been seeing. He's obviously been shooting the ball a lot better here over the last 2 weeks. That is huge. They need to get him back on track if they're going to be able to do anything this year. But he was, that was a vintage performance. They desperately needed that. I think they, in weird ways, a lot of times when your star gets ejected like that, you do get a little bit of a rallying effect. And I thought he carried that momentum and made big play after big play after big play down the stretch. And it was great to see.
Yabusele did the same thing, Kyle, here as we talk about Joel Embiid getting ejected. Andre Drummond, we'll ask you about that here shortly. But Yabusele then comes in and he plays really well, finding his shot, knocking down the threes, ball fakes, getting to the basket and finishing. But also, just as important was the way he played Victor Wembanyama on the defensive end, with the familiarity of with those two knowing one another from their time, of course, in France. He really, really stepped up, finding his offensive play and certainly picking up the slack defensively as best as he could against Wembanyama.
Yeah, I'm about to start a GoFundMe for that $2,000 fine.
You're upset about Yabu losing that bread.
Listen, man, that's a garbage call in any game. It's even more garbage after what happened tonight. So I would say the other thing that I'll complain about, not related to Yabu, but on the Spurs side, Victor Wembanyama, Joel Embiid got thrown out of the game. Andre Drummond can't play because of a toe contusion. The only 2 bigs left are Yabu and Adem Bona, who didn't play. And all that guy did was jack threes tonight. I'm sorry. I'm going boomer mode. That was nonsense. Get your ass in the paint and dunk on some people, man. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. So, yeah, Yabu was awesome. And I think the thing that I really saw in that second half was just the versatility, right? Like when Wemby didn't want to come out and contest shots, Yabu's taking the open 3, and he made a bunch of those. When Wemby's maybe playing up a little bit higher and has to cover from 3-point line to the rim, he did a good job of using his physicality, getting inside a little bit, scoring around the basket. And, yeah, obviously on the defensive end, the fact that he's limiting that guy to just being a standstill or fadeaway jump shooter is a credit to him, and a good understanding shown from him playing alongside him, practicing with and against him for the French national team. I just think I wish this team had been normal this year, that they had gotten like a decent bill of health for Joel. Paul George doesn't suffer these injuries, because I think someone like Yabusele would be getting like real national love, right? If this was a better team, the fact that this guy's played backup center, he's played power forward, and he's hitting way more threes than I think most people expected. He's a secondary playmaker. He's doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like the quintessential role player thing, right? New night, new challenge. Coaching staff asks you to do something different, and he's risen to that challenge. Not all the time, but vast majority of the time. So he has had an all awesome season for me, and it was cool to see him in this circumstance where chips are down. You really need them step up and help them get. I mean, this is probably the biggest win of the season, is it not? Given the circumstances and all that.
Yep, absolutely. And if you guys are hanging out with us here tonight, make sure you go to allphly.com. Read the stories from all three of the guys here, Kyle, Derek, and Rich. Rich, of course, with his newsletter daily. Make sure you check everything out at allphly.com. Derek, what are your thoughts on Yabusele?
No, I mean, he really was. Like, he competes, and his physicality, I think, can really impact someone like Wemby, who, as Kyle noted, should get his 7'4" rear end down towards the basket. He is, the shots going in obviously help. He'd been struggling a little bit here over the last couple of weeks, but just the high compete level, the willingness to mix it up, the overall intelligence, whether that's as the secondary passing or the defensive rotations, he has been very consistent for the most part with that decision making. And while the jump shot maybe has not been consistent, the fact that you can trust him to make the right reads, make the right plays, to swing the ball correctly and quickly really lifts the floor. So even though when he's struggling, he might not have the box score stats, for the most part, I still like what he does. And you combine everything today, the physicality, obviously knowing his opponent that he's going against, and the shot going in, it was a massive performance. And to Kyle's point, they didn't have very many options left. Clearly, Nick's not going to want to put Adam Bonus in the game all that much there, especially against Bonus. I don't know if Rich saw that the other day. That was not a slip up on my part, to be clear.
No, I had listened to the pod, the Saturday night pod. Yeah,
but
I know Adam.
Clearly,
Bonus.
He didn't want to go to Bona there in a tough spot against a really tough matchup. So for Yabusele to give them what what he did, it was necessary. It was huge, and it's something that I think we're starting to take a little bit for granted here from a guy that I don't think we knew what to expect from coming into the season.
I think that's all I got.
Well, actually, one more. Do you guys have anything more on the Drummond and KJ Martin injuries? Just toe and that's it.
Toe and foot, I believe, right? So
yeah.
I actually joked before we went to the locker room. I was like, I wonder what the odds are that Drummond kicked the wall because he was mad and hurt his toe. Because I don't know what happened. And we still haven't gotten much of an update. Well, that was the craziest part about the whole thing, right? Is once they showed that angle on NBC of the tunnel, and he was so ready to be, expecting that his night was done, that it's like, damn, his jersey's off. He's got to get dressed before he comes back out there, and obviously got the hero's welcome. So no, not much of a formal update. Obviously, some of that is just because everyone was focused on Ref Show 2024. So. What a way that was the final home game of the year, right? Like the calendar year. So
Yep.
What a way to send off 2024 at the center, as they say. Just a complete circus. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Not at all, man. Wouldn't have it any other way, of course. Working with all of you guys, and we let you guys go. And you want to add something, Derek, to that?
Well, I was just going to say, this segment should have been titled, I got a lot of problems with those refs, and now you're going to hear about it. Just wanted to wish you guys a happy Festivus and hope you have a great holidays.
Absolutely. And that was presented by no one.
Derek only said that because he's scared to do the feats of strength live on camera.
Wemby, fight your father.
Happy holidays, fellas. Get home safe. Merry Christmas. All that. Hold it down for us.
We all silly like the mayor.